Yeah. So.
Hello everyone, welcome to UGASports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilbert, it's Jed May, Trent Smallwood. We're here once again to talk Georgia football recruiting, and we're coming to you live a little bit earlier tonight because Jed, a certain five-star linebacker, is about to make his decision known, and it's a battle between Georgia and Oregon.
Yeah, Justin Williams is committing around 8 o'clock. Like you said, #1 inside linebacker in the country, 5-star teammate of current Georgia commit Joseph Jonah Ajonye. And this is a guy who Georgia, and Blaine, you mentioned it, when we had him on earlier, Georgia was late getting in on Justin Williams here, at least the top 6 in January. Georgia wasn't in it because they hadn't offered, and he told the story when he was on Rumors versus Facts earlier this year. Glenn Schumann called him and was like, "Yeah, we're sorry. Your evaluation essentially slipped through the cracks." So Georgia offered this spring, has been pursuing him intently since then. Got him on campus in May for the scavenger hunt, official visit in June, and now the big day is here. The decision is imminent, as they say.
Trent, what are your thoughts on this 5-star from Conroe, Texas?
I mean, he with all the rumors of Riddick, kind of looking elsewhere, I think this kind of makes that a lot easier if that was to happen in a couple of days. I think Riddick's a good player. Justin Williams is elite, and I think he's going to be very good at rushing the passer and inside linebacker.
Yeah, and it's interesting that when you talk about inside linebackers, the 2 finalists here are Georgia, obviously, who's had the success at inside linebacker, and then Dan Lanning at Oregon, who was a big part of those guys having that success as a former defensive coordinator. But man, you just see Justin Williams move around, and it's no wonder that both of these schools, and then also Alabama, Tennessee, a lot of other schools, everybody was on this young man, Jed. And I think that, Coach Donovan told me a long time ago, follow the visits. And it certainly seemed like Georgia seemed to rack up a few when it was crucial there, even though they did get in late and things like that. And, also, I don't think, as you mentioned, visiting with his teammate, Joseph Jonah Ajonye, hurt anything either. And that's why I think all the momentum, unless something's a total reversal here, I think you're looking at a guy who Georgia feels like they sit pretty well to land here shortly.
Yeah, well, when we had both the teammates on the show, Joseph Jonah Ajonye, he said, we talk about going to schools all the time and this, but there was some phrasing like Justin Williams said that Joseph is always telling me about the school he wants to go to. And at the time, Joseph wasn't committed yet, but we all kind of took that to mean that Joseph was already in his ear pretty good about Georgia. So it would be amazing if Georgia lands both of these kids, because again, Georgia didn't offer Jonah Ajonye until March. Justin Williams, I don't think, was offered until March, maybe February. So to go from, literally not involved in these recruitments to landing the #1 inside linebacker in the country and a top 65, 70 player at defensive end in Jonah Ajonye, it would be incredible. That's a true testament to the work put in by Glenn Schumann, Trey Scott, Jared Uzo-Deribe, all those guys to get 2, foundational pieces in your front 7 and going from 0 to 60 in the span of just a few weeks.
Trent, everything even down as we're watching the highlights here, everything even of the single-digit number at linebacker, does Justin Williams not remind you a lot of Roquan Smith?
Oh, definitely. The way he attacks the gaps and the way he the closing speed. I don't know if we'll ever see another Roquan with the closing speed the way he had it, but he definitely does remind you of that, just with his ability to get in the backfield. He's fast. This is the reason why I think early on in his career he's going to be a weapon, even if he's not an every down linebacker. I think Georgia's going to find ways to get the best players on the field because this is an elite defensive staff that utilizes his playmakers well. And I think Justin Williams is going to be one of those guys that either comes in on third down situations or, it's some scenario is going to have Justin Williams in it if he does choose the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and when you're talking about a guy here in Justin Williams, I mean, I see a guy who enjoys the concept of middle linebacker. He talked to us how he likes to connect the front end to the back end and communicate with people. And you can tell that in just his personality. He's a very personable young man and a guy who does communicate well, very, very well spoken, very intelligent. So I think, really whoever, whether it's Georgia or Oregon, and again, all indications leading into this and every report that we've been hearing is that Georgia's the heavy favorite going into this decision that we will have here in just a minute. That, that's a big plus for whichever one lands it, that you have a guy that not only is talented at the position, but can also communicate and really be a vocal leader in that element of the defense.
Yeah, well, that's what you need in the middle of the defenses, right? I mean, you look to the NFL, those middle linebackers, the ones wearing the green dot and communicating with the sidelines. So it's huge. You get those the alpha males of the defense when you think of, like you said, Roquan Smith, Nakobe Dean, I mean, all these guys who have manned the middle of these defenses. Jamon Dumas-Johnson right now. It's a non-negotiable, really, that you're the guy in the middle of this defense is, like you said, connecting the front end to the back end, making sure guys are lined up. I mean, how many times do you see a Georgia linebacker, shifting a defensive lineman in front of him and getting the right gap? All that kind of stuff is what you have to have on top of the physical talent, the speed, the height, the weight, all that kind of stuff. So Justin Williams has got it, man. You look at this film, he's in the middle of the defense every play, but he's always getting to the ball. I mean, this first highlight, the very first one where he chases that kid down the sideline is very, very impressive. So this would be huge. I mean, especially like you said at the beginning, Trent, if DeMarcus Riddick should go elsewhere later this week, you basically, I mean, it's a 1-for-1 swap essentially, with Georgia also in good shape for Chris Jones, for Chris Cole as well. It's another huge inside linebacker class that's kind of shaping up for Georgia that could really get started. The final road to this thing could really get started tonight if Justin Williams ends up picking the Bulldogs.
What's impressive to me about Georgia even being a contender for a guy that's as good as Justin Williams is the fact that, looking at their linebacker haul from last year, you thought this might be a year where you took some development guys, or you could only land some development guys. It's going to take some time. But that's not the situation. And that just shows how elite this defensive staff is at Georgia, is able to just keep bringing in these guys. Glenn Schumann just keeps reloading. It's kind of like Todd Hartley on offense. It doesn't matter how many tight ends are in Athens. They just keep adding more. And it's the same with Justin Williams. They're able to grab this commitment. I mean, just adding him on top of the guys you got last year. And even if you add a guy like Chris Jones, who's no slouch himself, you're just adding 2 more elite guys to an I mean, you're going to have 7 or 8 elite guys in Athens just battling it out for position, for the inside linebacker position.
Do you think, Trent, that is because Georgia specifically has proven at that position and at the tight end position on offense that, listen, even if you have to wait a little while, or even if, look at, John Fitzpatrick, even at tight end, even if you're not the first string guy at those 2 positions at Georgia, you can and will get drafted to the league if you bide your time and do what you need to do. And then also, Georgia's able to use those guys. Even when they're not the main guy. You look at Jalen Walker, who came as an inside linebacker last year and ended up getting moved a little bit to the edge and utilized like that. Do you think that's kind of the trend of what's going on at those 2 positions for Georgia?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were talking about just a few minutes ago with the defensive line and linebacker, not offering until March. It's just how elite Georgia's been at those 2 positions in particular, is putting guys in the league. And we mentioned linebacker. Yeah, it's been a situation where a lot of these guys are not starting as a freshman. You go back to Channing Tindall waiting his time, Quay Walker waiting his time, and then they eventually get drafted. And Kobe Dean played early, but then you have Munden and Jamon Dumas Johnson who had to wait their time behind those three guys, and now they're the guys. And now you have this next group of guys waiting on them two to move on. I just think it's a ongoing process where you're going to be there for a year or two, play a lot of special teams, and get developed, and then you're ready to go. Year 2 or year 3, and I think these guys are seeing that. These guys are seeing these guys, develop, get ready, and and then be a future first round pick. And then I think those guys are buying into that concept.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're talking about somebody as a, that's as athletic as a Channing Tindall and Quay Walker, and had their troubles getting on the field for Georgia at certain point in time, to like being the guy, but then when they did, making good on it. I just don't see, Jed, how that's anything else but
that right there reminded me of Roquan chasing them.
That's what I'm telling you. I see him play, and I see the way he tackles, the way he closes on the ball, the instincts. I see a lot of that. But Jed, as I was saying, those stories that Kirby has with Quay Walker and Channing Tindall, and what they were at Georgia for the first couple of years, what they became, and then where they went in NFL, it's nothing but adding bullets to the chamber over there for Georgia football recruiting at that position.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of that's the pitch that Georgia uses in a lot of spots, but it goes one step further, because you can tell any receiver or whatever, hey, you're going to come in, and even if you don't play year 1, you're still going to get developed. But every kid wants to go play, and they say, well, if I'm not good enough to play year 1, am I good enough to go to the league, whatever. But like you said, you can point to guys, you can point to Quay Walker, you can point to Channing Tindall as specific examples of, we'll carve out a situational role year 1. I mean, Jalen Walker could end up being the same thing. We'll carve out a situational role year 1, year 2, maybe step into a bigger role, depending on obviously how the depth chart looks in front of you. And then year 3, boom, you're ready to step fully into the spotlight and be a first round draft pick. I mean, it's the pedigree is there with what Georgia's done really since Kirby Smart took over. I mean, like Roquan was the bridge from Richt to Smart, and then it's just, again, Crowder, Monty Rice, all these guys now. It's incredible what Georgia's done at that position. And Justin, I mean, like, look at last year. CJ Allen didn't really do a whole lot. All right, CJ Allen's a freshman this year. I'm an idiot.
Well, he was mostly a running back in high school, so it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, he didn't play as much linebacker as you would have thought he was going to play. But
there's so many of these big guys that come in, and I mean, I look at Justin Williams. He looks really big to me. And you look at these first off the bus guys, and it's usually an edge like a Williams DeWanery, who is talked about so much nowadays. Justin Williams looks like a first off the bus guy when you watch this film, and he looks, I mean, what do we have him listed at? 6'3", 210, I think. 6'2", 210. I mean, he looks very impressive physically, and has obviously got the speed and the instincts to kind of go along with it.
When we talk about Roquan, he almost looks like Roquan as a year 2 in college, because I think Roquan was a little smaller coming out of high school. But yeah, I mean, the similarities are definitely there.
Yeah. So, and y'all should have told me my microphone was not the same. Does it sound better now?
It does.
I just realized I had the wrong mic. I was on my camera mic and not on this mic. So y'all just speak up and say, "Hey, Blaine, you sound like you're in a tin can" next time. So I don't waste a little bit of the time over there. So yeah, no, it's going to be interesting here as we're waiting on the decision of Justin Williams to come down. We do want to mention that the show is presented by Julie's Bookkeeping. Julie and Chris are Georgia Bulldog fans. They have a bookkeeping service, everything from statements to taxes, everything that you need prepared on the business side for you or your small business. Then you need to check out Julie's Bookkeeping. You can see the logo down there in the bottom right. And then you can also, I put in the comments and scrolling across the bottom screen and in the description, you can go to godogs.juliethebookkeeper.com and get a 30-minute free consultation with them to talk how they can help you with time efficiency of having to deal with that stuff, because they get paid to do that. You don't. Also, like I said, Jed, they're dog fans. They want to help out dog fans, and they're hoping dog fans will want to support their business as well.
Yeah, what better way to help your business and help the business of somebody else than to go to some fellow Georgia fans? You'll see them at tailgates. You'll see them at games. You know, what better way to make halftime go by, right, than discussing some bookkeeping? So, you know, like you said, go to juliethebookkeeper.com and they'll get you squared away with a free 30-minute consultation. And yeah, I don't think Julie's a bookie. It's bookkeeping.
Yeah.
It's
RC wants to know if Julie runs a book so he can get his bets in on CFB. I don't know. They might want to try to, you know, get that off your books. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. Their trend. I don't know if they can help you out with the over unders and the spread, so to speak.
Yeah. What's the odds Carson Beck wins Heisman?
I don't know. Did new odds come out today, or have they shifted a little bit? Because at last I saw, he was like, you know, plus over 1,000 something. It was like plus 1,600 or something along those lines.
We should have went to Vegas, Jed.
Yep, I could have paid with my national analyst money. I could have paid for the whole UGA sports team to go, but you know, I didn't.
David Williams with a comment here on YouTube. He says, fellas, don't forget about EJ Lightsey. He'll be a surprise to dog fans. Yeah, a remarkable story as we're waiting on an inside linebacker, 5-star inside linebacker, Justin Williams, to make his commitment decision between Georgia and Oregon. Jed, it's worth recapping here EJ Lightsey and kind of what he went through just before he even arrived at Georgia.
Yes, suffered a gunshot wound in his hometown of Fitzgerald, and that's another guy who, you know, now that I get my classes straight, you got EJ Lights, who came in 2022, Jalen Walker, who came in 22, you know, CJ Washington, who unfortunately, you know, he suffered that neck injury, and it looks like his football career might be over, but still, I mean, it's the same thing as tight end. It's the stacking of elite talent back to back to back to back in all of these classes. And there's guys that you forget. I mean, EJ Lightsey, Xavier Story is an extremely athletic guy that still hasn't really found his role yet. And there's just so much talent in that room that you forget about all the guys who were there. So, you know, Justin Williams obviously would be a huge addition. He's kind of the do everything guy. Chris Cole, I think, is a little bit more of the play in space, the cover guy, almost like a hybrid, not hybrid linebacker safety, but a guy who I think would play in space a little bit more. And then Chris Jones, I think, is a little bit more in line with a Quay Walker type, just a big come down and thump you type of linebacker. So if you get those three, and obviously a lot depends on the decision of DeMarcus Riddick on Wednesday afternoon as well. It's another impressive class, and then Glenn Schumann can kind of, you know, dust his pants off, and then look at the 25 class, which is shaping up to be you know, the board is still kind of evolving in 25 at that inside linebacker. But rest assured, Glenn Schumann's going to find his guys, and then he's going to go get them.
Yeah, it looks like they're nearing a decision here pretty soon. These take a little bit of time sometimes to get going. There's never right on time when they say it's going to be. So bear with us just a minute. Trent, any more thoughts on Justin Williams or the inside linebacker position before this announcement is out there?
I mean, it's just, you know, Georgia continues to add elite talent to the squad. I mean, you just look at the roster as a whole, and you would think 2 national championships, and you know, you saw this with Alabama, and I think a lot of Georgia fans throughout those years said, "God, I wish we could build that elite talent." And honestly, Georgia's there. Georgia is to that point. Georgia continues to reload. Justin Williams just committed to Georgia.
There it is.
But yeah, that's a huge pickup by the Dogs. And just continuing to add that elite talent.
Yeah, it is. So it's up there on the screen, sharing it out and everything right now. So putting that up there while we get this out there for you guys. But no, it is another tremendous pickup for Glenn Schumann. I would be smiling like Glenn Schumann in that picture as well if I got that decision. So like we said, it is a tremendous pickup for Georgia. Just kind of talk to us a little bit here, Trent, about what everybody can probably, expect from, Justin Williams early in his career. Trent?
I think you're going to see a lot. I think he's going to be on special teams. I think you're going to see a lot.
Jed, is Trent breaking up on you there?
Yeah, a little bit. The heat from Georgia's recruiting class is kind of frying Trent's connection there.
Trent, you may need to back out and come back in real quick. It's freezing up on you, man. But Jed, go ahead. And so that 5-star inside linebacker, Justin Williams, added to the class, already number 1 class for Georgia. Currently, right now, Jed, they sit at 27. That could change later this week, okay, with DeMarcus Riddick, having a decision that we believe is going to go away from Georgia. So Georgia kind of getting out in front of that news right here. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not here, Jed.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby Smart is, he's a guy who these things aren't usually coincidence, right? I mean, when Georgia had all the offensive linemen commit, back to back on 3 straight days earlier, it makes you think. So it definitely makes Georgia, I don't want to say it makes Georgia looks better, but the blow is softened a bit, even if DeMarcus Riddick ends up going elsewhere. If you're a Georgia fan, you can say, okay, well, we lose DeMarcus Riddick, but we've essentially replaced him with the guy who's number 1 inside linebacker in the class and has all the talent in the world. So, I mean, listen, DeMarcus Riddick is a very, very, very good player. This isn't, this question was posed on the board the other day. Georgia didn't let him go or tell him to look elsewhere or whatever. Georgia wants to keep DeMarcus Riddick, and they should, because he's a very good player. But if you're going to lose him, there's no one better to quote unquote replace him with than Justin Williams. I mean, this kid is, his talent's off the charts for sure.
No doubt. And Trent, how's the connection now? You doing better over there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened just then, but yeah, I'm good now. It was good timing. I don't know why that happened right then, but just remarkable just to see how Kirby can, even if bad news comes here in a couple of days with Riddick, just being able to go out and handpick, another elite talent. I think that's what's made Georgia so special in the past. Even during the Mark Richt days, you lose a guy like DeMarcus Riddick, or possibly lose a guy like DeMarcus Riddick, and you replace him with a 3-star or replace him with a backup. That it doesn't happen like this. Like, it doesn't happen where you can replace it with the number 1 linebacker in the country, all the way across the country. So I think that is where Georgia has come so far in its recruiting. And I know a lot of people have always said Georgia's always recruited good. They've never recruited like this. They've never been able to replace guys that they've lost in a class with better guys. And not saying Riddick is any less of a talent than Williams, but just being able to replace with a equal to greater talent in Justin Williams is just remarkable. How far this the Georgia's come in just a short span of 3 or 4 years.
I haven't checked. Have either of y'all aware what this does to Georgia in terms of the points in the rankings? They were at what? They dropped just under the 3,000 mark when they lost Hayward in the class, and then I'm not sure what this will do, but I imagine being a 5-star commitment, then that's going to be a bit of a change in the points for Georgia. I don't know if anybody do the quick math on that real quick. I just changed him over to a commit on Rivals as well as we're speaking.
Let me do a quick. I mean, Jed's to know this. He's the national analyst.
I'm linking up a story on Justin Williams' commitment from one of my national analyst friends. So
Yeah. Shahid Huckabee says, I like that young man's demeanor. Seems like he has the it factor. Yeah, we talked about that a lot, Jed, before he announced the decision. He's a young man who his demeanor is contagious. I mean, he's just absolutely a light when he comes on and is talking to everybody. It just bright smile. And listen, he's a young man who's rooted in his faith, and I think that comes across as well. And it's something that he really hit it off with at Georgia with guys like Cedric Von Pron and Jalen Walker, also guys devoted in their faith as well. And I think that had a big impact on his decision to ultimately come to Georgia.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a Georgia, obviously. I mean, when you get into the recruitment of guys like Justin Williams and Joseph Jonah Janye so late, you've got a lot to sell in a short period of time, right? Whether it's culture, whether it's scheme, all that kind of stuff. And Georgia has done a good job of selling culture with these guys. And I was reading Cole Patterson's story here, and he says, he has the classic line, Georgia's linebacker you. It plays a factor in where you want to go. It's a development process. You see those guys, and that's, like we said, Nakobe Dean, Channing Tindall, Quay Walker, Monty Rice. You see those guys have developed into great linebackers. So as a linebacker, you want to be great. And something too, and Patrick Garvin, Patrick Garvin has a tweet about this right here. Including 2024 commits, Justin Williams would be the 12th Georgia signee from the state of Texas in the last 7 years, after Georgia went 11 years, 2007 to 2017, without signing anyone from the Lone Star State. So what Kirby Smart has done in the state of Texas since he's been here, I mean, you just recently, Dylan Bell from Texas, A.D. Mitchell from Texas, Bear Alexander originally from Texas. So Kirby Smart has done a good job getting talent from that state, where obviously Texas A&M, Oklahoma is good in Texas, Texas Tech, TCU. All those schools are always going to be tough for those kids. So what Kirby Smart has done getting talent from that state shouldn't be overlooked either.
It looks like 3,072. So it looks like
3,072, and not even done with July yet. Trent, that's got to be the biggest or largest total that I mean, that's the largest one I can remember. It's got to be one of the largest ever, I think, at this point in the year for Georgia.
Well, I remember back, a couple of years ago, where you're talking about if you have a 3,000 point class, I mean, it is beyond elite class, and Georgia's sitting here with a 3,000 class in July, and I can't remember. Honestly, I know everything's changed with recruiting and stuff, but I can't ever remember a class having 3,000 points in Rivals rankings in July. That's just totally unheard of. You've seen classes reach about 2,400, 2,500, but 3,000 and above is just remarkable to have that. Before the season even kicks off.
What do you think the ceiling is for this class, realistically, in terms of the point total?
I mean, I think the ceiling, you're looking at the ceiling's probably between 34 and 35, I think.
Would that be, what was the record that Alabama put the record up last year, right? I believe. Texas A&M and then Alabama back-to-back years, I think, set new marks.
Yeah, Alabama had 3,366 last year.
And then A&M the year before.
A&M had 3,470.
All right, so 3,470 is the mark to beat.
Alabama in 2021 had 3,548.
Okay, so you'd have to get up around 3,600 to beat that. But listen, there's some 5-stars still out there, and we've got questions on them, and we're going to go ahead and hit those. So we've been on here since about 7:50, previewing the Justin Williams decision. We've been reacting to it, and now we're going to hit your Vault questions here. What's Up, Dog says, this is kind of a one for the Vault community. Do y'all talking about me, Jed, and Trent have a connection. Well, Bulldog Bob's resources on recruiting status confirmations, preferably silent commits. Thanks. One, I would have to know who Bulldog Bob is, and that is a age old debate around the vault, Trent. And no, but I would have to know who he is before I know if we share some resources.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around for quite a while, and I can honestly tell you that I have zero clue who Bulldog Bob is. Yes, he's been pretty spot on. He gets a lot of praise on the board, and rightfully so. He's bid money a lot when it comes down to predictions towards signing day, and leading into predictions. He's been wrong, of course, at times, but there's probably Kirby Smart's probably been wrong at time when it comes down to a decision, because these recruits these days are telling staffs different things. But I don't know if we share resources because I don't know who it is. So,
Jed, what's your thoughts on Bulldog Bob?
I think that we as a staff have very good sources, whether we overlap with Bulldog Bob or not. Bulldog Bob could be one of our sources, and we just don't know it. So, I think, the thing that makes the vault great is we have insiders and people who, the public.
So are you saying it's Kirby?
Who doesn't know? Like, you can do like an anagram and figure out, the letters and stuff. But, the vault community is great. The people who say, my cousin saw so-and-so here and heard this and this, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, it always makes for fun debate. So, the Publix cake story, Trent, you were around for that one. That's a great one. So I don't know. We've got good sources, and I don't know if they overlap or not, but it's always fun when you're trying to parse the information.
The only reason we had some solid information about Justin Williams because of the Publix in Conroe, Texas, was making
no doubt. Yeah, the Publix in Conroe, Texas tipped us off. Celebrations, all those balloons and all that. Yeah, there's a cake too. All right, so Colony City Dog, thoughts on linebackers Cole and Jones as players and where the Dogs stand with each. So, Trent, if you had to break down, we just talked about one 5-star stud inside linebacker and Justin Williams, who committed. Now Georgia turns their attention to that position to Chris Cole and Chris Jones, with DeMarcus Riddick likely exiting the class later this week.
Yeah, they're both very good. I think Chris Jones is a little bigger. I think he would offset Justin Williams good. The way Georgia likes to run their linebackers, they like to have the guy that fill the hole, and then the guy that can roam a little bit and with the speed, the sideline to sideline speed. So I think if you're looking for somebody to bring in that's not like Williams, I think Christopher Jones fits that mold. But there's no slight. I think Chris Cole is a good linebacker, but I think Christopher Jones would be my pick out of the two to join the class with Justin Williams if Riddick chooses to go elsewhere.
Jed?
Yeah, I think Chris Jones, like you said, Trent, is a little bigger, a little more maybe physically ready for SEC football. Chris Cole has a very interesting skill set. Like I said, he can play in space. He can probably cover a little bit more. And I think Georgia is better positioned with Chris Jones than with Chris Cole. Georgia got that official visit with Chris Jones and surged to the top, and I don't think anything's really changed. And he should be committing in the next couple of weeks based on the last info we had. So Georgia feels good at that point. I think Chris Cole, there's Georgia, there's Miami, there's Penn State. I still think that one's a little more open. And I think it's a situation where, assuming Georgia obviously has Williams, assuming they lose Riddick and gain Chris Jones, I think they're in a situation where they can go somewhat all in on Chris Cole and not feel like they have to reach and grab a third linebacker from somewhere. I think Chris Cole is their guy, and that they want him as the third guy. But should they miss on him, I think they will say, okay, you know what? We got Jones, we got Williams. We're good to go.
Andy Stowe, if you're listening out there, it's the age-old question: who's the third man and wrestling fans will know what that's all about. All right, Jed, we got one from the Boy Racer 45 here.
Yeah, where do you think Georgia currently sits with LJ McCray, and how big is it that he's planning to be in town this weekend for an unofficial visit?
It's huge. I mean, it's always huge. Anytime you can get guys on campus, that is big, and that's another opportunity to just let them be around your players, or let them to see your program, or let them to allow them to see the personal interactions between the current players there and the other players, and the current players there and the coaches, and see how genuine that is, because you can't make that stuff up. I mean, that you can't fake that. I mean, either it's there or it's not, and guys get to see that. But I think, Trent, when you're talking about LJ McCray, when you're talking about Aiden Breland, I think it's kind of an either or situation there. I don't think you're going to end up getting both in this class. And, it'll be interesting to see if they can get Breland on campus another time, but certainly having LJ McCray doesn't hurt. And I think they, in the last visit, did a lot to help themselves and get them up there with the Florida and Florida States in this recruitment.
Yeah, I actually thought like coming into the month of July that LJ McCray was, totally sold on staying in state. And then the news pops up that, that he is coming to campus. He will be at Georgia late July. And that's huge. I think that just shows how serious he is about Georgia in this recruitment, because you've heard a lot of Florida. You've heard a lot of Florida State. You haven't heard as much as about out-of-state teams with McCray. And, Georgia felt good about it coming out of the visit, earlier. But I think getting him back on campus and for a big recruiting weekend and being the only one to be able to get him on campus, per se, is big going into the summer. And I do think also, that the either or with him and Breland, I do think it would be possible to bring them both in, just for some fact that they do play. Breland's more of a hand in the dirt, and McCray's more a stand-up guy. So
I thought they told McCray that they might make him gain some weight to go down, because I don't know if he's going to end up ultimately being a stand. I know he's kind of right now.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, but I think I think he's 6'5", 245 versus 6'5", around that range, and I think it's going to be Georgia likes to play there. Trayvon Walker coming in at 265, 270, so he's going to have to add 25, 30 pounds to be able to play on that 5-tech.
I think he came in a little bit heavier than that when he was at Georgia than what we had him listed at Rivals. I could be wrong, could be thinking of another prospect, but he's definitely going to be more of at least a 5. I don't know that he's going to stand up all that much, but I see your point. They could definitely bring in. But I mean, God.
Oh, I see the lady. He's been measuring at 260.
Yes. So I think he could beef up. He's in that in between where you're either gonna add 20 pounds or you're either gonna lose 15, and it's which way do you go? But Jed, that if they were to be able to add both of those guys, just to do that, and then plus what you have out there, when we talked about those 2 other linebackers, we talked about KJ Bolden's out there, Williams, Wander's. I mean, all these guys, the numbers are getting up there real big. I mean, you're getting 32, 33, 34. You start doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's where, like you said, that's where the third inside linebacker maybe doesn't happen. That's where a
fourth receiver
is right. Is fourth receiver is something you figure out after the season, and guys are in and out the transfer portal and whatever. So,
which that was the next question. Lower East Side Dog said, rumor or fact, Georgia will sign a fourth receiver. I think the chances went significantly down once Mike Matthews committed to Tennessee.
Yeah. I mean,
but what are your thoughts on that, Jed?
Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, Ryan Wingo is obviously still out there. They're not going to give up on Jeremiah Smith until he's signed. But, if you made me pick right now, it just seems more likely that you're going to figure something out in the spring as far as the transfer portal goes. I mean, that just seems like again, it's the same thing as inside linebacker. They don't need to reach and take a fourth guy out of high school for the sake of doing so, right? They can hold it and see who this year's Dominic Lovett is, who this year's Ra Thomas is, who comes up and they think, okay, this is a guy we can add and help us at that position. So they're not going to take a guy out of high school just because they can. There are those 2 or 3 guys that they would love to add, but if they don't get them, then I think they're comfortable saying, "Hey, you know what? We'll wait and see how the transfer market develops, and then go from there."
Talking about adding those guys, if you just added KJ Bolden and Nate Frazier to the commitment list,
we didn't even mention Nate Frazier.
You're adding 172 points to the Rivals team ranking. So I mean, you're getting up there close to 32, over 3,200 with just those 2 guys. So yeah, you're definitely getting up there with point plus.
Trent, what do you think about this one? How much is Nwaneri's recruitment about NIL, and how big is the Nigerian connection with Coach Uzo Diribe?
As far as NIL, I'm not sure. We've heard both ways, or I've heard both ways. Is
every commitment about NIL at this point in time? Like, every one of them has a element of it. It's just how much of it is that about it. But every one of them, make no mistake about it, is about it at some point.
And the problem is most of the fuss or the agreement or whatever is done from people around that prospect. Necessarily, it's not really him as a prospect. The prospect is not really in the midst of those negotiating, or not negotiating, but those NIL stuff. So I think you get into situations where a kid might want to be somewhere, and then NIL is a factor elsewhere, and then there's you can't make a decision within a household, or within your circle of where to go, because you might want to go somewhere, but NIL factor might be better somewhere. So I guess we'll see how big NIL is a factor when he ultimately makes a decision.
Jed, what about the connection with the Nigerian descent there with Uzo Diribe? Because we've seen that with Joseph Janae Ajanye, and then also Nnamdi Abuko.
Yeah, and Samuel and Pimba in the last class as well. I mean, it's huge. I mean, everyone talks about, when it comes to Uzo Diribe, he's a young guy. He can relate to the recruits, on and on. That obviously the Nigerian thing is one more layer to that, and everything. I mean, when to tie it back into NIL, every little bit that can separate your school and make your school unique with these prospects is huge, and that obviously is something that means a lot to these kids, especially when you talk about kids who were born overseas and came here to play football, all that kind of stuff. That's huge. And it's obviously something that has paid dividends for Georgia, in addition to Chidera Uzo-Diribe just being a heck of a recruiter. Not Nigerian connections or not, he has done a fantastic job since when he got hired last February or January, whatever it was. So, no, it's huge. It plays a part, but I just think Chidera Uzo-Diribe is just killing it on the trail in general.
Well, what would be interesting is if you took NIL wasn't a thing, and you looked at this class and what Georgia could land without NIL being a factor. I think this class could get up probably record-setting 3,600. Just thinking about what they can land, just because NIL has already been a factor in this class, and it's already swayed guys to go elsewhere. But I think you would be looking at Georgia landing 7 to 9 5-stars if this wasn't a factor.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, but I just want to let everybody know that we're trying to be as just forthright as we possibly can about this NIL stuff, and tell you that, listen, every single school is utilizing it. Every single school has collectives that work hard at posturing themselves as, hey, this school is going to take care of you as a player. If you're a parent, they're going to take care of your son, help them get these opportunities to brand themselves, things like that. There are some schools that you go on visits, and I know personally, I've had recruits tell me this, and say, what the first thing you do when you went on your visit to X school versus where you went on your visit to Georgia? The answer to a kid when they tell me their visit to Georgia, it's never, hey, I got pulled into a room and they immediately started talking to me about NIL. But there's a couple of prominent schools in the top 5 annually. One located up in the Midwestern area in a Big Ten school that the first thing they do with a lot of these guys is they pull them in a room and they say, here's what the NIL looks like. So I think guys either respond well to that or they don't. So there's some different things on that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Hydrant Chaser says over under number on Rivals 5 stars UGA signs on Sunday. Keeping in mind they may not be 5 stars right now. He says 5.5. Is that rumor or fact? So right now, Georgia has Peyton Woodyard, Dylan Raiola, and Justin Williams as 5 stars in this class. We know Trent believes that Nikar could be on his way, and it's just Jed's, it's up to Jed when he names him a 5-star. So that would be 4. Then the ones out there, you got Nwaneri out there, Bolden out there.
Ellis Robinson could be a 5-star too.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that?
Ellis Robinson can very well be a 5-star for us.
And then maybe even, I don't know. I mean, as far as my book, I don't know how far he could rise up. Nate Frazier's a really, really high up there type guy. I don't know what he could end up being in the final rankings, but I think that's a realistic number, 5.5, say 6 5 stars in the class. What are your thoughts, guys?
I'll say over, because I think one of those guys, one of the current commits, probably Nikar. Honestly, I think Ellis Robinson might get to 5-star status before Nikar. So that's 4. If you get KJ Bolden, that's 5. And then if Nikar rises, or you get Williams and Nwaneri, that's 6. So, 5.5 is a good number. Whoever sent that question in should work in Vegas, but it's really close.
Ellis is sitting at number 22, and when Rivals comes out with their final rankings, it usually has around the 32 mark of 5 stars. So I think right now you're looking at Ellis Robinson potentially being that 5-star. Nikar sitting at 32, so he's sitting right on the border of 5-star, 4-star. So really, you're looking right now at you having 3, but if the rankings ended today, you'd have 5. So
this time last year, Jordan Hall was either an unranked 4-star or a 3-star, and then he had a really good senior year. But then he goes to the All-American Bowl or game or whatever and blows up to be a 5-star. So you look at guys in that range. If Nitro Tuggle, if he has a huge year at IMG and then blows up at an all-star game, he could be a 5-star guy. I mean, stuff like that is not out of the realm when you look at these guys who are in the 100 to 200 kind of range right now too.
Patrick, I mean, they've got 5, 6, 7 more guys that are going to commit in this class, and like we said, there's going to be more 5-stars named in this class. You can think it's crazy if you want, but that number, that over under at 5.5, I like that a lot. I think that's a good number. It's going to be 5 or 6 right around there when it's all said or done. Realistic UGA fan 1191 version 2.0 said, is there any Kirby signing day special not being mentioned much that Georgia flips or gets to commit? And then gun to head prediction on Williams and Nwaneri. So is there a Kirby special out there? Kirby's been known to make some big flips, some late commitments in the class. What are your thoughts on that, Trent?
I mean, I very well think that Kirby's going to get a flip or 2 come signing day. That's just what happens. A lot has to do with the way the season goes. I mean, potential head coaching and openings. Guys taking coaching positions elsewhere. Also, how the team performs. I think there's several teams out there that have landed some top guys, and you start to see those guys flipping towards the end because that team might end up 5-7 or something like that, and the program's not going the way the coaches say it is. So I think Georgia's going to land flips. There's no way to tell exactly who those guys are at this point during July, but I do think there will be a Kirby special. I think Georgia will get a flip, come signing day. I just, that name's still to be determined on what happens in the season and what coaches like to go elsewhere.
Jed, I was going to see, Andrew Paul, he was a February guy, I believe, and nobody even knew about him until literally 2 weeks before he ended up committing and signing with Georgia. So whether it's that receiver, that fourth receiver, maybe that Georgia takes a flyer on somebody on, hey, that worked out, another time pretty well with Lad McConkey late in a class at one point in time. So I think that there's always a chance there. If it's not a JJ Smith, a Jeremiah Smith, flip that everybody in the Georgia fan base is hoping for, then it could be maybe a guy that was a little undervalued or somebody that Georgia thinks, hey, that guy can end up playing here.
Yeah, and the Andrew Paul thing, it seems to me, even just in the year and a half since, so many more guys are signing early, but obviously not everybody does, and that it could be a guy, like you said, that blows up in the playoffs, that the staff doesn't see his senior film until January, whatever. And again, by that point, it's February 10th or whatever, you have a better idea of what your roster could look like, what you're losing, what you could add via the portal, and that could give you a better idea of, hey, are there any running backs out there that might have slipped through the cracks, any receivers, any corners, whatever. So there's that. I mean, signing day is, like you said, Trent, I think that might be something where you look at the 2 weeks leading up to signing day, what coaches are rumored to leave their current schools and how that kind of shakes out. So, yeah, I mean, Jeremiah Smith is it kind of seems like is where that question is leading. I mean, if Brian Hartline leaves for somewhere, that, I mean, you can never say never, but yeah, there's somebody. It's just, it could be, we don't know who yet, right? That's where you look at who shows up on campus during the season, maybe, and then you go from there. But
most
Kirby has a track record of it.
Most time you look in the secondary because Kirby likes to flip secondary players late.
Kyron Jones came on super late last year.
That leads to the last question here. Andy Stowe says, with Hayward decommitting, will Georgia still take 3 safeties, or will it just be 2 with Woodyard and Bolden? So Andy Stowe's already he's speaking it into existence there. It's saying that KJ Bolden's going to be a Georgia Bulldog. That's his opinion there. So if that were to be the case, Trent, do you think Georgia holds tight at those 2, or do you think 3 safeties is kind of a must for Kirby in this class?
I always said I thought 3 safeties was good just because of the depth issues at safety Georgia has had, over the past couple of years, and building up that depth in that room is important. You look at Javon Bullard moving to safety this year, and he was good last year at Star, but I think there is depth concerns there. They are young there, and I think 3 would be the number, and taking a guy that maybe the third one being a guy that could play Star as well, like a hybrid guy. But I think you have to land 3 guys that can play safety in this class. That's what I would lean towards.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I know Xavier Filsaime was a guy who was going to take a visit. He's committed to Florida. That maybe they revisit there. I'm not sure exactly who they would go searching for if they did need another safety out there.
Yeah, I mean, one thought I had, Cam Michael is a name that is out there, so maybe you take him to play.
Now that's true. That's true. We've said, and thank you for reminding me. We've said for a long time that we think Cam Michael, who Georgia does want to play DB, could end up in this class.
Well, and you could take him and play him as safety, or if you say, okay, we'll take Michael and put him at corner, DeMello Jones could maybe play safety / star if you feel comfortable moving him there. So there's so much cross training that goes on in that secondary. A lot of the corner versus star probably get figured out in the spring anyway. But yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of names instantly springing to mind, which, to go back to last question, that could be where the signing day special thing comes in. A guy that they surge for through the season, get him on campus for a game, and then close strong. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
Well, as always, guys, we've enjoyed covering Georgia football recruiting for you here on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. Remember, the reason we were all here was that 5-star linebacker Justin Williams committed to Georgia this evening. He is the top-ranked linebacker in the class, and Georgia just gets richer at that position after Roquan Smith and all those guys have started this lineage of just dogs going to the NFL, Nakobe Dean, all the like, even Tay Crowder, as Jed mentioned earlier, Quay Walker. I mean, all of these inside linebackers. Glenn Schumann just has a factory going through there. So we reacted to that. We answered your vault questions. Make sure you hit that like button before we get out of here. It's free to you. It helps us out a lot. So like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Remember, presented by Julie's Bookkeeping. You can get all their information in the description of this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. For Jed May and Trent Smallwood, I am Blaine Gilmer, and we'll catch you guys next time on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.